so much for taking some time with me today.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm looking forward to talking to you. You and I connected through a post that you made on LinkedIn recently, and I've got a couple of questions I wanted to run through with you.
Yeah, sounds great.
So tell me a little bit about your role here at Icon and how long you've been here.
Okay. I rejoined Icon a year ago this month, actually, as a client relationship manager, also known as a CRM. Prior to that, I was a scientist too in Icon's bioanalytical lab in Whitesboro, New York. So, as a CRM, just to put it simple, I manage the relationship between Icon Central Labs and some of our key clients.
Great. And so tell me a little bit about that LinkedIn post that you made and how your experience has kind of impacted your role here at Icon.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to try to make a long story short. So I started my dream job as a scientist at Icon shortly after college. It was so cool. I was a scientist in a lab. I had my own workstation. I wore a lab coat. I also worked in the Has lab. It was great. It was more than what I could have imagined, starting right after college. I was there for about 4 years when I became pregnant with my first child. And about 7 months later, my life completely changed. My son was born not only 2.5 months early, but also with a rare genetic disorder called Prader-Willi syndrome. So his name is Lane, and his NICU stay far exceeded my maternity leave. So at that time, I decided not to return to Icon, which was pretty devastating. But of course, caring for him, was my number one priority. Because of Lane's prematurity and because of his syndrome, his needs were extensive. He was so weak. He had a Mickey button, so we had to feed him with a pump. He was on oxygen. He was hooked up to all these monitors. It was so crazy. It was so scary. And we quickly started traveling along the East Coast just to find doctors and specialists, just to find the appropriate care for him. Um, so during that time, though, and don't even ask me how, I did start my own small business. I named it Lindsay Lane Boutique, and it grew really fast. I opened up a store in New Hartford, New York, and in Ithaca, New York, and it was amazing. I found myself with incredible employees, and I was also in the community, and I truly felt like I inspired the community, especially women and especially moms, and that was so meaningful to me. If you fast forward about 8 years, we did receive information from Lane's endocrinologist about a clinical trial. And after a lot of thought and consideration, we decided to enroll Lane. And his first visit was October of 2019. So right now we travel about 4.5 hours to our site. So every visit, Lane has lots of tests, lots of blood work, of course. It's pretty intense. But we've also had nurses come to our house to do blood work, so that's been pretty cool to just eliminate some of the all of the traveling that we have to do. But being in a clinical trial, it really sparked my interest and really sparked my passion to become more involved in clinical trials outside of my personal life, and that is when I decided to return to Icon.
Well, we're glad to have you back. And
Thank you. Try to make that short and sweet. A lot there.
no, it's an interesting story for sure, and one that is inspiring for a lot of people and for a lot of different reasons. How has this experience of having your son Lane involved in that life-saving clinical trial, how has that impacted how you approach your work here at Icon now?
Yeah, so living through a clinical trial, it's been over 3 years now. I think it significantly impacts my job. It gives me empathy, it gives me a real life perspective, and I feel like it gives me a voice to better advocate for our clients. I think a lot of time when you can work with empathy, when you can work with compassion, um, and you can work with real life hands-on experience, it makes what you do just so much more impactful and, so much more meaningful. One thing I'd like to share, and this was part of the LinkedIn post that you saw, is, and this also applies to myself, is, most of you who work in clinical trials, you will never see a patient. You will never know their name, their age, or what they look like. You'll never see their pain and their struggles, and you'll never know what their parents go through. But I just want you to know that, your job is so important and you are changing lives. And a mom like myself and a brave boy, like my son, we're so grateful for you and for your work and, for your time and, just your dedication to clinical trials, because without you, we wouldn't be here in this, phase of our life.
What a phenomenal opportunity for people who are involved in clinical trials to get to hear from a family that has benefited from a trial. And that's wonderful. It's a
Yeah.
great opportunity for us to hear your voice.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, Linsey, if you were talking to someone who was facing a similar situation, what advice do you think you might give that person?
So I would say, obviously do what feels right, but do what feels right, even if it's terrifying. Of course, outweigh the risks and outweigh the benefits. And, you have to think about yourself first and foremost, but also think about, the other people you could help, the other people, the other lives you could change. I think sometimes the scariest changes in our lives are truly the most meaningful and impactful and some of the best changes that we could, ever make.
That's great advice. Hopefully someone is listening right now and they're able to take that to heart. That's wonderful. So when you think about the future here at Icon, what does that look like for you?
So, well, I'm very excited to be back here at Icon. I'm super excited to be so heavily involved in clinical trials. I hope I can continue to share my personal story. I hope that I can inspire, some people that I work with, and, maybe eventually someday have the opportunity to work with, maybe families that are thinking about enrolling their child into a clinical trial, or maybe that already have, and just be able to connect with them and provide support to them. So yeah.
Well, I can't think of anyone who would be better suited for an opportunity like that. I wish you all the best with your continued path here at Icon. And thank you so much for taking the time with me.
Yeah, thank you so much for, letting me share my story. I appreciate it.